Picture this. A woman lies to her husband, falsely accusing me of having romantic intentions towards her, all in an elaborate scheme to veil her own hidden truths. I am Smith, and I invite you to join me as I unravel a narrative spun with love, deceit, betrayal, and concealed realities. Let's commence at the beginning, so you can comprehend the backdrop, and perhaps share your thoughts as I recount my tale. Tanya and I were childhood companions, growing up in a secluded corner of the country. We shared the same neighborhood, the same school, the same church, even the same birthday. Both of us, only children, were born on the same day. Our story was one of rags to riches. Our parents, despite having nothing, strove to provide us with the best education possible. We knew that our only escape from poverty was through learning. We promised each other that we would excel in our studies, and we did, graduating at the top of our classes all the way from elementary school to high school. We even earned admission to one of the most prestigious universities to study accountancy. It was during our first day at university, amidst the chaos of registration and familiarizing ourselves with the campus, that we met Josh. We were resting under a tree when he approached us, asking politely for directions to the admissions office. His innocent blunder made us laugh, and we liked him immediately. We swapped numbers, and that was the beginning of our friendship. Months later, Tanya and Josh fell in love. They tried to deny it at first, but eventually their feelings overpowered them, and they made their relationship public. I had no objections. Tanya was my childhood friend, and I had always harbored platonic feelings for her. We were inseparable throughout our university years, and Josh, who was also a diligent student, fit right into our routine. Class to library, library to dorm, and so on. A week before graduation, Josh proposed to Tanya. I was overjoyed. My best friend was marrying her best friend. After graduation, we all landed fantastic jobs. However, my job was in a different state, forcing me to leave them behind. Nonetheless, I was proud of us. We had changed our family's fortunes. We would often joke about how we, the children of nobodies, had finally achieved the financial freedom we had always craved. Reflecting on our past, we would laugh and agree that while there are many paths to success, academic excellence was undoubtedly one of them.
2 years after graduation, they both got married, and it was the happiest day of our lives. I was so happy Tanya got married to her best friend, and I wouldn't have to bother about how she was doing because I was so sure she was in safe hands. Of course, I was the best man and I performed my duty diligently. Within a few years, they had 2 children, and I was so proud of them. And here is how my problem began. It was on a Friday evening after closing from work, and 2 of my very close colleagues asked me to go have a night out with them. I would always come up with different excuses until they forced me out that fateful Friday, and I had no choice but to just yield to their demand, not knowing that would change my story forever. We sat in the hotel lounge when my colleague spotted his friend and called out to him excitedly. They greeted each other warmly, and my colleague asked why he was alone in the lounge. His friend explained that his girlfriend was staying in a hotel room, having been there for over 2 days. Whether he was intoxicated or just naturally talkative, he proceeded to share details about his relationship with this girl he had met at a party years ago. He recounted how they met, her frequent visits, and their intimate encounters over the years. He even promised to introduce her to us. Exhausted by his chatter, I longed to leave and return home, having come to the lounge reluctantly in the first place. The man left us, and my friend ordered a drink for me. We were having fun when the man came back holding the lady he lodged with him, who he had spoken so highly of, on the waist, and she greeted us, "Good evening." The voice sounded so familiar, and as I raised my head to clear my curiosity, lo and behold, it was Tanya. A lot of things went through my head that I couldn't process at the time. "This mustn't be true," I said in my mind, as I couldn't believe that the lady standing in front of me was my best friend. I greeted Tanya as I pretended I didn't know her so as not to spoil the mood, and here comes Mr. Talkative, who started praising her, talking about how much she loved him and they had been staying together for days and that she was so good in bed and so on. So I picked up my phone and started recording every single word he said. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I recorded everything. As he was blabbing, I felt like strangling him. She couldn't hold it again, so she excused herself, and I saw it as an avenue to question him. I asked every single question, and funny enough, the man reeled out everything. His husband's name, his children, where he works, where they met, how long she's been visiting him, and more. I made sure I got everything on record. I told my colleague that I had to leave as I had heard and seen enough. As I entered my car, I couldn't hold back my tears. What must have happened? Why did Tanya turn out to be this? Why, Tanya? Too many questions popped up in my mind, but I did not have answers for them. When I got home that night, I was so lost, so I had to put a call through to Josh. We talked and agreed, and before I could say, Jack told me his wife was in my state for a seminar from work. He told me how much of a faithful and hard-working wife she is, and how he's hoping to spend the rest of his life with her. His words brought tears to my eyes as I kept thinking that the lady he so much loves and trusts was in the hands of another man warming his bed.
I couldn't sleep. Many thoughts running through midnight, and in the early hours of the morning I had a knock on my door. Your guess was as good as mine if it were Tanya standing on my door looking so dejected and lonely. But before I could utter a single word, she dropped down to the floor and started crying. Unknowingly to her, I have placed my phone on record. She told me that lately her husband barely gave her attention. He placed work above her and they barely had time. She has been suffering in silence for a long time. She begged me not to tell her husband, and I promise it won't. A few days after she got back home, I noticed her husband's attitude changed towards me. He hardly answered my calls, and when he picked up, he made an excuse to call me back, only not to call or pick up my calls. I began to worry. What must have happened? Why was my friend trying to set boundaries? What have I done to deserve to be treated like this? First it was the wife, now it's the friend, emotionally tortured. For 2 years, they both avoided me like the plague. I asked them what was wrong, but they both insisted nothing was wrong, and that the change in their attitude was because of their busy schedule. At first, it was hard. But as each month passed by, I learned to live with the reality that my only true friends had finally left me without saying a word, and that became my reality. A few years later, as I was passing by my office road, I met an old colleague. I was surprised to see him, and after exchanging greetings, we began to talk about random things from life to work, family, etc. And that was when I heard the shocker of my life. He started by asking if I'd apologize to my friend. Apologize for what exactly? I told him how they had both ignored me, not picked up my calls, etc. Then he said, "A few years ago, Josh confided in me that you betrayed his trust, and he never expected what you did." "What did he say I did?" I inquired, and then he gave me the shocker of my life. Josh recounted a tale from years ago, alleging that during a seminar my wife visited my home, and I made advances towards her, professing love and expressing discontent with my relationship with Josh. Shockingly, he even fabricated a claim that I attempted to assault her. As he rolled out all the lies she said against me, I was just dumbfounded. I knew she was trying to protect and look out for herself. I knew quite well she was only trying to create a rift between her husband and me so that we would be the worst of enemies and wouldn't have time to tell him what I saw, and when if I do, he wouldn't believe me. But what I find so hard to believe is why she could go to the extent of telling lies and tarnishing my image. This is not the Tanya I know. The Tanya I know is so reserved, disciplined, and not wayward. I feel so much pain. As I made my way home, the weight of the recording I carried with me felt like a burden on my conscience. How could I salvage my reputation and dignity from this mess? The options swirled in my mind. To all viewers, I'm reaching out to share my emotions, seeking comfort, guidance, or even a glimmer of hope amidst these challenging moments. I'll be available in the comments section.